Professor Habib doesn't require an introduction. It is not just a customary statement. An outstanding, world-renowned historian, scholar, author, public intellectual. Above all, he has been a firm, unwavering, committed communist to the cause of working class movement. He has been of the non-teaching staff organization in Aligarh Muslim University. So his Irfan Saab's commitment to the working class movement, to the communist movement, not only theoretical, but it has been practical also. I don't wish to take any more time. After me, before Irfan Saab starts his talk, Professor Prof would be briefly speaking to you. We are extremely thankful to all of you who have responded to our public request to participate in this program. You all have come due to your sympathy and solidarity with the progressive democratic movement on the one hand, and your friendship and camaraderie with the departed leader, Sitaram Yechury. Though I don't need to mention the galaxy of eminent people, but I would be failing in my duty if I don't mention the presence of outstanding artists. This is Shamila Tagoreji, who is second. Similarly, former Vice Chancellor Professor Govinda is also present here. An eminent person from the Kashmir Valley, Jammu Kashmir Valley, Sri Wajagat Habibullah ji, is also present. I don't want to add any more names. I see the outstanding people in front of me. For paucity of time, I don't venture further. Before I invite Professor Prof to speak briefly, I would also like to share with you an interesting coincidence. When I checked various sources, I found that the birthday of Sitaram Yechury is 1st August, that all of us know. And in one source I found the birthday of Irfan Saab also as 1st August. They share the same birthday. But when I cross-check with, because I have to cross-check especially the birthday of an outstanding scholar and historian, I should check up the exact date. So Irfan Saab told me there's a small mistake of one day, it's 11th August. But also Google could not understand that. Therefore, some of us who go after Google, we should remember that it cannot always be accurate. This is also a great lesson for us. With these few words, thanking all of you for having joined us to pay our homage to Comrade Sitaram Yechury by listening to one of the outstanding intellectuals of the world, Professor Irfan Saab, who is 93 years young today. He has not been, Professor Irfan Saab has not been attending public programs. After almost a decade or so, he is visiting. So that shows the commitment Irfan Saab has for the democratic movement, for the working class movement, and Communist Party and Friends, I shall not take very long. Professor Irfan Habib is, of course, the most iconic academic intellectual in the country at this moment. But his iconic status comes not just because of his being the doyen among historians, but also because he has consistently raised his voice against injustice, against exploitation, against oppression. This is something which actually he started doing very early in life. He became a member of the Communist Party very early in his student days, and subsequently he even wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru against the injustice of denying scholarships to communist students who had qualified for it for going abroad. Such were the times that Jawaharlal Nehru actually asked him to come and meet him. And he actually met, they had a talk, after which that ban was lifted. Professor Irfan Habib was among the first to actually go abroad, despite his being a part of the Communist Party. And the outcome of that visit was his magnum opus, the agrarian system of modern India. There is, of course, a view which one often comes across that being politically active is something which does not befit a proper intellectual, that a proper intellectual should be detached from politics. This Philistine view is something which is negated by the examples of some of the outstanding intellectuals of the last 100 years. Albert Einstein was politically very active, J.D. Bernard was politically very active, and of course Jean-Paul Sartre was also very active. In our country, the indication of this assertion is Professor Irfan Habib. It is our great good fortune that he actually has come to speak to us today, and it's a fitting tribute to the memory of Comrade Sitaram Yechury that Professor Habib is going to be delivering the first Sitaram Yechury Memorial Lecture. Thank you.
Now, this part of the auditorium is full. I want to inform that the balcony there are still few seats available, and the foyer there is
he was General Secretary of the Communist Party of India, Marxist, that Marxism is a basic ideology which the communist movement follows. I thought I should take a subject which is that of the applicability and indeed the application of Marxist concepts and methods to India. It is true that Indian criticism and opposition to British rule precedes the communist critique of British rule in India, because already from 1880s, Dadabhai Naoroji and his colleagues were sharply criticizing the way India was being exploited by British imperialism. And while today one is devoting oneself to the Marxist critique of British imperialism in India, it is also proper to pay respectful tributes to our own national figures, preeminently Dadabhai Naoroji, R.C. Dutt and Gadgil, but particularly Dadabhai Naoroji and R.C. Dutt, who described in detail how British colonialism was exploiting in India. And while they used polite words, their critiques stand valid today as they were at that time. So when we pay tributes to the earlier scholars, the earlier nationalists, and earlier scholars abroad, like Karl Marx himself, and Friedrich Engels, we also pay tribute to Dadabhai Naoroji and R.C. Dutt in particular for bringing out how Britain was exploiting India. I'm today especially concerned with Karl Marx and the Marxist approach to colonialism in India and its consequences. Karl Marx's criticism of colonialism was, of course, included in Capital, Volume 1, and also in the subsequent 2 volumes, and also in his articles contributed to the newspaper in America, which have been published several times, both earlier from Moscow and now also from other. There's one edition coming from New York in 1991. The communist approach to colonial India precedes the communist movement in India, because this approach was first initiated by Karl Marx in his articles in 1840s onwards, also by Friedrich Engels, in which they pointed out how British imperialism was exploiting India. But from 1980s onwards, Indian economists, particularly Dadabhai Naoroji Yechury and R.C. Dutt developed that critique. And although they often use courteous words, their content was singularly effective against British justifications of their rule in India. Therefore, as we celebrate what Karl Marx said against colonialism in India, we should also celebrate what Dadabhai Naoroji and R.C. Dutt in the late 19th century wrote us said in criticism and denunciation of British rule and economic exploitation of India. I have a feeling, I think, that the tribute owed to them is not effectively or adequately recognized in our universities and educational institutions. And I think, therefore, it is time that we should look at what they found to be wrong and evil in the British exploitation of India. Their publications with Dada Naoroji and Dutt begin from 1880s. And they pointed out how India was losing annually a large amount of its income and wealth to Britain, the so-called tribute, the drain of wealth from India. They were therefore the predecessors of communist critics, of Marxist critics of British rule in India. Our own communist movement began really in this century, and in 1920s various communist groups appeared, particularly influenced by the Soviet Revolution of 1917, and created communist groups. Here it is not my intention or time to go into the various stages in which the formation of communist movement took place, particularly after 1917, the Soviet Revolution. I think that it is best to remember that by 1930s, the Communist Party of India, a single Communist Party of India, had practically been formed. It had already resisted British repression, the so-called Meerut conspiracy case, 1920s, and others. Of the Meerut conspiracy case, I am sorry if I make a diversion, because of a kind of piece of information which has not been seen in print, because it came from one of the judges. My father, Habib, Prof. Habib, told me that in 1930s he went to see one of the judges, Sasha Sulaiman. And Sulaiman complained that he was not being able to sleep. And my father asked him why. He was Vice Chancellor or Chancellor, I forget which, of the Aligarh Muslim University and a judge of the High Court, later on promoted to what was then called Federal Court at Delhi. And he told him that is because of these blessed communists. When the trial took place, I found that they were innocent. And I told the British lawyer that what was he was saying was absurd. This was not physically possible what he was saying for the communists to do. He was then, Sulaiman said, was called by the British English Chief Justice. And he said that, you know, Sulaiman, your name is being set for the federal court, to which he was appointed later. And if you mess up this communist case, you know what would happen. And that's why Sulaiman said that although I modified the punishments, I upheld the punishments, whereas I intended to say that the law does not justify this kind of case. And therefore he said the communists went to prison for a few years more. This was what he told my father, and my father generally communicated to me when he was reminiscing about previous case. And then I found that this was indeed the case, that Shah Sulaiman had modified on appeal the punishments to the communists, but he did not dispense with the punishments, he only reduced them. And in reward, soon after, he was appointed a federal judge at Delhi, and also won the vice chancellorship of the Alibaba Muslim University. So, all these things that take place in life